Hello, fellow fantasy sports fans. Welcome to MFSN The Hub's Fantasy Baseball Strategy Show. We've got a special one today because I'm not usually here on Tuesdays. Usually we're here Thursdays, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific. We'll be back next week in that rotation. But this week, we've got starting pitchers today that we're ranking for our draft. Let me introduce us. I didn't even introduce us.
No introduction needed for Kasey and Ross the boss.
Do we really need an introduction?
I'm Dr. Dan Ratner. I'm here as always with Kasey, Vlad to the bone, Shienvold, and Ross the boss.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ross the boss, and we're going to learn about starting pitchers for this season, 2023, and we're going to give you some great tips. I'm excited, guys.
Got to get you ready for the draft. Next week, we'll do relief pitchers, and then we will have covered everybody, and we'll have you ready for your draft. But we also have our MFSN draft coming up this Thursday. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Tune in. You can see us drafting live, talking about what we think about the values and who's taking who where and all that sort of thing. So feel free to tune in. We'd love to have you with us. Guys, we're talking starting pitching. We usually talk about top 10 as a place to start and kind of the top tiers. I find tiers are a little bit harder in starting pitching than some of the other ones. There's so much variation and subtlety. So, but if I had to say, who's in your top tier, Ross, let's start with you. How many do you have in your top tier?
Well, my top tier, I have about 6 in my top tier. These people
all right, Kasey, what about you?
Yeah,
I would probably go a little higher, maybe 10 or 11. I didn't break it down by tiers, but looking at who I have ranked, I would still consider them close enough to top tier.
Okay, now get ready for this for some variety. I have only 2 in my top tier.
Great. So why don't you go first? Let me see if I can prediction. Is one of them the actor from LA Law, Corbin Burnson?
It's very close to Corbin Burnson. Yes. Corbin Burns is my number 1 ranked pitcher, and I have Garrett Cole second. I think it's not that there's a huge drop off necessarily with the other pitchers, but there are some other question marks. One of them just being age for some of them. Some of them is injury. Some of them is the amount of time they're going to be pitching. And so when I looked at it, I was just like, there's only 2 guys that are just the bona fide aces, top of the line, everything. No questions at all for me. And it's Corbin Burns is number 1 and Garrett Cole's number 2. So I'm interested in the debate. Case, what do you think about my top tier?
I agree they're in the top tier. I have Garrett Cole 4th and Corbin Burns 5th.
Interesting.
Great. I want to hear Kasey's number 1.
I know age is a factor, but I went with the Mets geriatric duo as my 1 and 2. I
get it. They're my 3 and 4.
Yeah. How do you not? And then I put Sandy Alcantara 3 because that cat's amazing too. I mean, the NL East pitching is going to be pretty fun at the top with those 3 pitchers. The reason I didn't put Corbin, I trust me, like anybody 1 through 5, I would say you can make an easy case for the number 1 pitcher. Corbin Burns, my concern is his home runs went last year from 8 in 2021 to 21 in 2022. Like that's a big jump. And I don't know if that's a fluke or not, but you're in Miller Park for half your starts. That's not exactly a great place to pitch. Garrett Cole, I'm a Yankees fan. I have to admit that influences my ability to rank him up too high. I've seen him give up too many home runs in Yankee Stadium. Baltimore's an improved lineup. Boston's a good lineup. Tampa Bay's a good lineup. Toronto's a great lineup. So a lot of those starts in the AL East, they're all like just tough. The Mets, they pitch in a good park. They have a good lineup and good defense behind them. They both have proven that they hit all the peripherals and the strikeouts, and their wins are going to be high. So in a 5x5 standard rotisserie league, assuming they stay healthy, which they have for the majority of their career, I can't bet against them.
Yeah, that's one thing. I mean, their age, these are 2 that have stayed really healthy. But it is true. These 2 Mets combined are 78 years old.
I know.
It's getting up there.
AARP,
it's 79.
Right? Yeah. But all 5 of those pitchers, Alcantara being the 5th that we didn't talk as much about, who won the Cy Young last year, they're all easily debatable for that number 1 spot.
Let me give you one more debate point, and then I'll throw it over to you, Ross. So Sandy Alcantara, I don't have him ranked in my top 10. He's great, but there's a lot of good pitchers.
Oh yeah.
And because he's not a big strikeout guy, it was harder for me. Ross knows I like the strikeouts.
I mean, keep going, and I'll give you my.
Well, I used to be
analysis.
like a whip junkie, walks and
You
hits
love
per innings
whip.
pitch, which is still my favorite stat for pitching measurements. But if you aren't getting strikeouts, you've got less of a window.
He still struck out more than 200 batters.
What's that?
He still struck out more than 200
Yeah,
batters.
but he also threw 225 innings. I mean,
yeah,
he was under a strikeout.
Right, but remember, guys,
but he's like 8.98 strikeouts per inning. If he was 9.01, you'd be saying he strikes out a batter per inning.
Well, that's true. That's true. This is why it's a fun debate. Go ahead, Ross. You jump in.
Okay, so categories is what we care about, right, guys? That's all we care about in pitching. We don't care about looks. We don't care about. I really don't care about age that much when it comes to pitchers. I just feel that they're ready to roll and rock. And I mean, Verlander had a great year, and he was 39 years old last year. Scherzer he got hurt last year a little bit, but I believe he's healthy now.
What's that?
So all that being said, I'm throwing age a little bit on the side when it comes to pitchers, just because I think their arms are ready to go compared to hitters when we rely so much on their eyes, and their eyes, as we know, when we get older, your eyes get weaker. So the category last year, only 5 pitchers threw over 200 strikeouts. 5. Think about that. Back in the day, Nolan Ryan had 300. Remember that? Remember the good old days when Nolan Ryan would pitch, 300 innings,
373 one year or something.
10 complete games a year. I mean, just no one cared about pitch count. Now it's pitch count. Now people care.
Well, now they pull people if they're throwing a perfect game after 6 innings because of pitch count.
So the past 3 years, Julio Urias of the Dodgers has led the league in wins with 39. That's averaging 13 wins a year. 13. It's a joke. So the win category, I'm kind of like throwing that away. I mean, I'll draft players, but I'm looking at guys who get strikeouts, who have low ERAs, and who throw a lot of innings. I mean, that's what I'm looking at when I come to starting pitchers. I mean, I got to put Ohtani in my top 5. I think the Angels will use him a lot. He's already going to be the opening day pitcher. I like Spencer Strider of the Atlanta Braves. I know he's a young guy. We talked about older guys. Don't worry about age, but this guy's special. And Dan, you can name off his stats when it comes to strikeouts, how special he is. And this guy's the real deal. I love Sandy. I know Ross, he's going to have a big.
Ross, here's my question for you. You just said you're a big fan of guys who throw a lot of innings, and the 2 you just named threw 165 and 131.
Right. Well, again, it was one guy's rookie year, and
right. But I'm saying, are you suddenly expecting him to go up to 220?
I think he'll go up. I think he'll go up in innings if he's healthy. He'll
go up, but I wouldn't imagine it being much more than 180.
But I mean, he struck out.
Oh, trust me, he's in my
70
top 10.
batters over the innings.
Yeah,
Strider.
Trust me, he's in my top 10.
Are you talking about Strider or Ohtani?
Strider. They're both in my top 10.
Yeah, me too.
I just can't qualify them as innings eaters when you're talking about people like Sandy Alcantara who threw 228 or Corbin Burns 202.
I mean, I like Alex Manoah of the Toronto Blue Jays. I feel he'll have 200 strikeouts and throw 200 innings at least.
Yeah. But this to me is what's so interesting about starting pitching. Starting pitching, first of all, you're not dealing with a 5th category. None of these guys are getting saves. So the wiggle room for them to be valuable goes down if one of those categories gets hit. And then on top of it, and I agree with you on this, Ross, wins are a pretty big crapshoot. So I don't worry too much about wins. I'm just looking at.
You can't.
I'm looking at. I like WHIP as a predictor of ERA, by the way. So I look at WHIP and strikeouts, but then innings eating, and that's a good point. It may, as I think about it, maybe I have Sandy Alcantara a little too low because he's capable of throwing that amount of innings that well. That covers a lot of ground. So I could see that, and I could see bumping him up. However, when I look at the guys I have ahead of him,
who are they? I want to know who you have ahead of.
Okay, so I mean, I have Burns and Cole first and second. I had Verlander and Scherzer 3rd and 4th. The guy I had at number 5's got to go down because he's injured right now. Carlos Rodon. I don't know what you guys think about him, but he's a monster. And granted, he's going to the Yankees now. Is that going to change things? I don't like it as much as like in San Francisco, or even as much as when he was in Chicago. But he still is a beast. With his injury, I put him below now Ohtani.
I don't even have him in my top 20 because of the injury. It's elbow.
How long is he out for, guys?
Yeah, well, I made this list before I heard about the
Right, but how long is he out? Is he out for?
Case, how long is he out for?
I'll look for it while you're talking. Go ahead.
Okay. We do have a comment coming in, though, and I just want to get to that first. Al Dohar says, where do you guys have DeGrom?
So DeGrom, I'll answer this. DeGrom's a big question mark. I mean,
yes.
For me, it's the biggest shift of any player I have in fantasy sports, in fantasy baseball this year. Either he's really high or he's really low. You can't really put him in the middle. So the people that feel he's going to stay healthy will draft him high. And when he's healthy, you remember how good he was with the Mets, Kasey. I mean, his ERA was under 2, and he had strikeouts. I mean, this guy was a beast. So do you want to spin the wheel and see if he'll stay healthy?
I think if you factor in the risk, the place where you have to put him is in the middle.
Yeah, he won't go in the middle. People are going to draft him.
He won't go in the middle of rounds. I'm just talking about where to rank him.
Well, he's going to be ranked. He's going to rank the top 20 pitcher for sure.
I have him ranked 10th.
I was going to say maybe top 10.
In the last 3 years, in 2018, he made 32 starts. In 2019, he made 32 starts. In the last 3 years, he's made 38 combined.
That's true. So however, look at what his numbers are.
His numbers are insane.
Even if you get 80 innings from him, they're going to be an insane 80 innings, and they're all going to be. It's not like you've got a middle reliever you have to carry all year. He's going to give you those 80 innings, and then he'll just go on your IR. I think 10 is about right for me. I could see ranking him a bit lower. I could even see some people ranking him higher, but I don't like that risk.
Yeah,
it's too much risk for me.
To get back to DeGrom, to get back to Rodon, he's shut down for the next 7 to 10 days. Then he'll start a throwing program over from scratch. It sounds like he's going to start the season on the IL, but they don't expect him to miss very much of the season.
So, okay.
But it's a forearm strain.
Yeah. And those things can linger. So I had him at 5, which I'm sure is higher than a lot of other people had him.
Yeah.
Now he goes all the way down to probably 17 from that.
From an injury that will be over in April. Well, you think it's going to linger on. I get it.
Well, there's a risk that it'll linger on. I'm not saying I think it will. So
how many Oakland A's do you have in your top 20?
0.
As many as you do.
I wonder how many Oakland A's we had in our top 20 in any position, but at starter, there's not a whole lot there.
No, okay.
Right?
Just making sure I'm not crazy. Okay, good. Well, I am crazy, but
so I have Ohtani as 5th. You know, if Ohtani was clearly like not in a 6-man rotation and he was just going to pitch all the time,
he would be.
I would have him maybe first. Honestly,
yeah.
I mean, he's just that good. Now here's another guy that I've always liked. That it's a little bit of controversy. We'll see what Al thinks of it and the rest of the people watching, but I like Dylan Cease a lot. Because he strikes out so many guys and he's a really solid pitcher. You know, it was a debate between him, Shane McClanahan, and Spencer Strider as to who comes next. And I think you can that's a toss up. And it's different. It's funny when you make your own lists. I'm sure this happens to you guys. I look at my lists and then a different day, I'm like, I don't really agree with that. Today, I'd put Strider up there. I don't see Cease is better than Strider. I see Strider is better than Cease. So I would have Strider 7. I'd have McClanahan 8. I'd have Cease 9 and DeGrom 10. Albert.
So you have no Philadelphia Phillies in your top 10.
I have Aaron Nola 11. But we'll get to that in a second. All right, Albert Merquin says, do you guys prefer Nola, right on the money, or Wheeler? Wow.
Okay.
I prefer Nola.
I'm a Nola guy.
Now, how close is it between Nola and Wheeler for you guys?
I have 2 in between them.
I have about 5. I have Nola number 7 and Wheeler around 13.
I have Nola 10 and Wheeler.
Just because Philadelphia's team is stacked. I mean, they have a really good
I have Nola 11, and I actually have Wheeler 19. There's a lot of great pitchers in here. So
again, guys, you just put them in a pat.
Yeah, the only reason I prefer Nola is the strikeouts. He's a strikeout guy. He found his strikeout pitch again last year. 2021 was rougher for him in Ks, but last year, what was it? 235 strikeouts, something like that.
Well, here's the other reason I like Nola more is he's done it more. You know, some people actually would prefer the guy who just arrived on the scene because they think he's got bigger upside and more of a chance to go even higher. But I like to see the guy who's done it many, many times.
Yeah, I mean, I think the overarching theme to starting pitcher this year is you can wait to draft him. I mean, it's so deep. Like literally, you can go 30 to you can go into the fourth round before you draft a pitcher, and if you get you can get a couple good starters over the next 2 to 3 rounds and still be fine. Like, yeah, would it be ideal to have a rotation that includes Cole or Burns or Alcantara or or a couple of those guys? Sure, but given the scarcity at the positions, the offensive positions, I would wait to draft starting pitching this year, probably.
I agree with you 100%,
yeah,
especially the injury factor too, Kasey. I know guys that draft Cole in the first round and draft
Well,
Burns
Cole
in
and
the
Burns
first
have
round.
proven durable, so
I agree, but it's just I'd rather wait and pitch to take players who play every day.
But I mean, if you're looking at like Jose Ramirez versus Garrett Cole,
right,
it's a no-brainer to me, especially
or Vladimir Guerrero, or I mean,
Jose Ramirez, to me, if I had the chance to draft him first, I would. He's my number one pick.
Yeah, because third base is shallow, and I mean, okay. Al's got another question. Al Dohar says, "Where are the bargains in need of Ks in American League pitching?" I'll certainly give you one bargain to start, and then
let me guess.
Oh, go ahead, guess. Let's find out.
Pitches for the White Sox?
Nope.
Pitches for Houston?
Yes.
Yes. Does he have a weird first name?
No.
Although
Framber, are you talking about Framber Valdez?
Framber, yeah,
he is a great.
Yeah, Framber.
But if you really want strikeouts, and you're looking for a bargain, it's Christian.
Yeah, Christian Javier.
Somebody, he didn't go deep into games last year.
Nope.
But not a lot of people are talking about him. Is Springs in Tampa Bay?
Okay, let me just give you a warning about Tampa Bay. Big warning on Tampa Bay. They do not use their starters past the fifth inning.
I understand that, but if you're looking for Ks, if he gets you 5 innings, 8 Ks, he can get you the stats.
Their starters come in the second inning. Almost
some of them.
And Chris Sale in Boston, they interviewed the manager for Boston.
I have him as a value pick. Yeah,
right, but the problem with him is he's on a pitch count and he's not going to pitch that many innings. The manager already said it.
Another guy I like is Tristan McKenzie of Dan's Cleveland Guardians. This guy is, he's not Shane Bieber, so he's not the big name there. I think he could actually outpitch Shane Bieber this year. He's a strikeout per inning or more. I think he had 191 strikeouts, between 190 and 195 last year. Another guy who you can probably get in the middle rounds. Now, if it's an AL only draft, obviously you have to adjust for that.
You want to hear somebody I'm drafting like in late rounds, and I don't know why, but he's like he won the Cy Young a couple years ago. He pitches on a pretty good team. Is Robbie Ray? I mean, this guy fell. Yeah. I mean, he got hurt last year. He was out for a couple of weeks, but I mean, he's healthy, and he won the Cy Young 2 years ago, 2 years ago. He was unbelievable.
Look at the question too. I mean, he's asking in need of Ks. Robbie Ray is right there. He's striking
a ton of guys. He's going late in a lot of the leagues I'm playing in, and I'm picking him. So I'll take that chance.
I'll mention another. This is one of my sleeper picks, but if
I want to hear this, I can't wait.
Andrew Heaney looks like a really great value.
Heaney? No one knows who that guy. I'm just kidding.
That's what a sleeper is, right?
Yeah.
Now, of course, people did once know who he was, but I
Mr.
think there's
Haney?
huge value in that.
You ever see Green Acres?
A long time ago.
Mr. Haney? I'll forget it. You guys are the worst.
I'm sorry, we get most references, but you go all the way back to Green Acres and we get into trouble.
Oh, it's a classic sitcom. Come on. Kasey even watched it when he was sick in bed as a kid. He used to watch it.
Listen, I
never saw an episode of Green Acres.
I'm a guy who watched like the Beverly Hillbillies and Leave It to Beaver. I saw all these shows. Green Acres still didn't quite make it through. All right. We got another question, and this is coming from someone you may know, Ross. Dax Mark says, do players play better on different days of the week, like Sunday versus Wednesday? Ross.
Yeah, they do. There's this guy who plays in our softball league named Wednesday Dan, we call him.
Wednesday Dan.
Because he plays like an all-star.
It's not me.
No, it's not you. So he plays like an all-star Wednesday, and then on Sunday, he'll strike out 3 times in one game in slow pitch softball. Don't ask.
Well, so wait, sorry, which days is he bad?
He's good on Wednesdays.
Good on Wednesdays, but not on
Wednesday.
Sunday.
Dan,
that just sounds like he stayed up late Saturday night.
Ross, it looks like you have a kindred spirit.
You need some. He's on the spectrum too. I'm pretty sure, but yeah, keep going.
Aldo Hart says Eddie Albert, Zsa Zsa Gabor, a classic.
Yep, Zsa Zsa.
Zsa Zsa. Okay, guys, let's move into the next. Well,
Next
who
tier.
have we left? Have we left out anybody that you guys had in your top 10? I mentioned a couple that we almost just passed over. Shane McClanahan.
I have Julio Urias. I mean, you guys.
I
know
11.
I mentioned.
I have him 15.
I love Julio Urias in the top 10. I just feel he's the Dodger ace this year, and no one talks about him.
I mean, he's a great pick, and again, a lot of these are quibbling over numbers. To me, Julio Urias, he's a little bit lower because of his strikeout rate, and because I think his value is a little bit inflated by wins. But him finishing as a top 10 or even top 5 pitcher would not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah, and I also talked about, I have in my top 10, I have Brandon Woodruff of Milwaukee, the other stud pitcher they have. Now, he doesn't get he doesn't go as deep into games as Corbin Burns does, and that kind of holds him back. But this is a guy who's striking out. He has, 153 innings, 190 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, a 1.07 whip. So that's another guy who, you add 15 innings into him and he's at 210 strikeouts and his numbers are he's already the 8th ranked player in Roto last year for starting pitchers. So
I'd say Brandon Woodruff reminds me a lot of Christian Javier in terms of his value and his strikeout numbers. I like Javier a little bit better to be
Javier's ceiling is higher because he's younger. I mean, Woodruff is 30.
That's also
and
true.
So we don't know what the innings cap is for Javier coming into this year now that he's guaranteed a rotation spot.
I'll tell you this, Javier is the one guy on this list that I could see coming out of this year and being the number 1 pitcher next year. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it could. Ross, what do you think?
I love the Houston pitching staff. I love Garcia. I love Valdez. I love all those guys. I think they can repeat this year as champions. They're that good. If you take a Houston pitcher, I think that's a great investment for many reasons, because they'll get you wins and they get strikeouts, and they're all 4 starters are good.
Not only that, but with Verlander off of that team, they're actually all values in the draft. None of them are really considered top 10. I don't think. I'm looking.
And Valdez, I know he's a funny first name. I mean, he's my huge value pick this year. I mean, look at his stats, Kasey. I mean, his stats are just off the charts. I mean, his everything. I mean, he's that good, and no one talks about him. No one. He's not even in the conversations. For
it's weird too, because he was a big time prospect and he's delivered. Like, what more does the guy need?
I agree. And I'm going to sneak in the draft Thursday. I'm going to sneak him in, and you guys won't even know when I take him. He goes, "Oh no,
I already have him as a value pick, Ross. I don't know. We could dance over this.
Just don't tell Kasey Shienvold about him. It's all
we won't tell him. Case, cover your ears. Oh, it's too late, as I understand time. All right, guys, let's move into. Albert Marquand has a question. Where do you guys have Luis Castillo ranked?
I have him in my top 20. I have him at 16.
I don't. Okay. Tell us why.
Tell us why, Kasey.
I just think he's that good of a pitcher. I mean, last year he went to, if you remember at the trade deadline, it was either, who are you getting? Are you getting Frankie Montas or are you getting Luis Castillo? Who are you willing to pay for? And a lot of people, like Luis Castillo was the bigger target. Seattle was willing to pay more for him. And look he delivered. That's what I keep coming back to. I
agree. And he pitches he pitches to the 8th inning all the time.
And he pitches deep. He pitched he had a bad year in 2021, I think it was. He was pretty bad, or 2020, 2021. Then last year.
Everybody had a bad year in 2020.
Well, that's true, but not always on the mound. Right. And pitching in Cincinnati last year, he was able to pitch like an ace in the easiest hitter's park in the league. Then he goes to Seattle and he just does the same thing over and over again. And as a Yankees fan who is watching Frankie Montas now have shoulder surgery and be out for the season because they didn't want to overpay for Luis Castillo, it was painful to watch what he did to get Seattle into the playoffs.
And with Ray Gilbert, Logan Gilbert, who we haven't talked about, but he's not in the top 20.
George Kirby.
I do like him. And with Castillo, that's a really good pitching staff. I mean, they're solid in Seattle.
Yeah. It is. It's not a bad ballpark to be pitching in either. So I like all of those Seattle guys. I don't have Luis Castillo ranked in my top 20, partly because it's a crowded field.
I agree.
We're going to end up comparing notes, and you guys will have left off people that I'm like, oh, I never would have left them out of my top 20, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
So
his upside is borderline starting pitcher 1. he missed the first month of the season last year with a shoulder injury, still ended up throwing 150 innings, striking out 167 guys, under a 3 ERA, right around 1 WHIP. I mean, the difference between his numbers and Max Scherzer's numbers are negligible at best.
Well, that's the thing. You're not going to be able to predict this well because there's such variability that you could have Luis Castillo go all the way to number 1, or you could have him have a subpar season and finish up as like the 45th best pitcher. I just think he's got some risk to him, so I don't have him ranked in the top 20. Ross, do you have him in the top 20?
I have him like 22.
Okay.
I have him on the cusp. I mean, again, you can just, he's a very solid pitcher and he'll get you a lot of innings. I'm worried about injury with him. He gets hurt. He's been getting hurt a lot every year, so I'm worried about that. He goes on the DL for 2 weeks, comes back, but he's getting older, but again, he throws heat. I mean, the guy is good. And if you get him in the 6th or 7th round, that's a steal.
Yeah, I think so. So guys, let's talk about in that second top 10, the second 10.
Yeah.
Who have we not covered? I mean, like I have Aaron Nola in there. Some people could have him in the top 10.
I have him at 10. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a top 10 guy. I mean, he's close.
Somebody who I have right on that top 10 next group is Yu Darvish. As much as people can say he's 36, he's inconsistent. The last 3 years, he's at 10 Ks per 9. So he's at a strikeout an inning, 1.007 WHIP, and a 3.3 ERA as an average over the past 3 years. Like the guy last year, 194 an inning. So he goes deep into games, 197 strikeouts. He's 36, but San Diego's a good team. It's a good ballpark. Like that, he could end up being a top 5 pitcher if things break right for him. His problem is he goes these stretches for like 2 or 3 starts where he looks like he's the worst pitcher on the planet after he's just thrown like 4 incredible starts. And that unpredictability is the only thing that keeps him out of that top 10 for me.
Yeah, I could see it. I mean, one of the other things that keeps him out of the top 10 for me, though, is just sheer volume of great pitchers. There's a lot of good pitchers out there.
Yeah, I mean, I love Alek Manoah. I told you guys that. I really feel this kid's going to have a great season this year.
I have him at 16.
I think he's somebody that you could probably not steal, but get probably 6th, 7th round, maybe you can get him.
You can get some value on him because I think he's going to perform as well as some guys who are going 2 rounds earlier than him. But you get him 2 rounds later.
I mean, this guy gets no press. He's his team's getting better. Is Zach Gallen of the Arizona Diamondbacks? Zach Gallen is
Zach Gallen.
Is a stud. I mean, this guy throws hard, gets strikeouts. I know he plays on a mediocre team. I've been nice, but you know what? I mean, it could be one of these sleeper picks or one of these value picks for Zach Gallen because he'll go late. I mean,
yeah, I have Zach Gallen ranked 12th, and I have him a value pick because I think he's every bit as good as all of these pitchers. I mean, he could end up outside the top 20. It's true, but he could go up into the top 5 if he's pitching really, really well. I mean, his numbers were amazing last year. And to me, he reminds me of Shane Bieber when Shane Bieber first arrived on the scene, which means he could go up in value, and you can get him at a value, especially because he plays for the Diamondbacks.
Let's talk about Shane Bieber. We haven't mentioned his name at all. He pitches in Cleveland, where you're from, Dan. What's your thoughts
Guardians?
on him? Yep. What's your thoughts on him?
I have Shane Bieber at number 15, just behind Julio Urias. I think they're actually kind of similar pitchers, but as much as I don't factor in wins, they are a bit of a tiebreaker for me. I think that Urias is going to get more wins in all likelihood than Shane Bieber will. I also think Urias actually has more upside, but Bieber is a really, really solid pick in these kind of middle rounds of the pitchers. You're going to have to pay for him decently, but you're not likely to overpay for him. You're going to get him at about the right rate, I would think. Case, what do you think?
I agree. The other guy I'd lump into that same group, and I actually have them all ranked near each other, is Max Fried in Atlanta. He's another kind of control pitcher who might not strike out as much as everybody else, but he always manages to have like a sub 3 ERA and right around 1 or less WHIP, and he's going to get a lot of wins. So I agree. I have Urias, Bieber, and Max Fried all as kind of the same type of pitcher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that.
Somebody who I think not enough people talk about, and somebody asked earlier about AL strikeouts that you can get at good value is Kevin Gausman in Toronto. Like he's probably not in anybody's top 20. He's not in mine. Actually, no, that's not true. I have him at 19.
We caught you in a lie already.
But it was only because, I had 4 or 5 guys I was considering. And when I looked at his numbers, I mean, he threw 100. He had a 3.35 ERA last year, which is high for him. And it was with a 363 batting average on balls in play.
Wow.
So imagine the ability to limit the damage. He had 205 Ks and only 175 innings. So, I mean, if his batting average on balls in play comes down to where he was historically and he still has a 30% K rate, like you're talking about a guy who could end up in the top 10 and nobody talks about him.
Well, and for those of you who don't know what BABIP is, batting average on balls in play, it's basically determines are people getting lucky or not, you know? And so when you see especially when you see something that's out of line with a pitcher's numbers, generally check their BABIP, see if, and that's true for hitters too, by the way. So I like that call. It's another way that you can get value. We did mention Logan Gilbert when we talked about Seattle in terms of values and strikeouts. I think another guy, I don't know if he's a sleeper because he's also so hyped, but Hunter Brown.
I have him as a sleeper. Yeah.
I mean, he's on the Astros. He's in the Astros rotation. Looks like he's going to get a chance to actually start right from the beginning.
Yeah. With Lance McCullers' injury, he's probably their number 5 starter right now.
And Ross, let's talk about this. You talk about how you don't value rookie hitters very much. Do you feel differently about rookie pitchers?
I feel a little different with rookie pitchers. I just feel that if they're been groomed and they're not brought up so quickly, I think they're ready to roll. There's many great examples with great pitchers that have great rookie years. So I'm more like into drafting young pitchers, rookie pitchers, than drafting rookie hitters.
Yeah, you can get value on both, but the rookie hitters are not likely to provide that value.
I mean, another guy gets strikeouts, but he's just up and down all year is Hunter Green. I don't know what to do with him. As you know, I'm a Reds fan.
Especially as a Reds fan.
Opening day starter.
And he's opening. Logan Webb was announced today for the Giants to be opening day starter too. And Hunter Green, his upside his ceiling is huge. I mean, it really is. And if you need a strikeout guy in the National League, that's the guy to get because he'll get a lot of strikeouts. He had some unbelievable games last year. I mean, he like a one hitter. I mean, he pitched great. I'm hoping he's back. I'm hoping he's healthy, and I expect him to have a big year.
Yep.
All right, let's transition into sleepers, busts, and value picks, and we can go in any order you want. We can just pick somebody who you think is of interest that you don't think the rest of us will have. I'll start us off. Actually, you just mentioned a guy who I know you're high on. I have him on my bust list because I just don't expect him to perform at the level he's being drafted at, is Logan Webb. And one of the reasons I think that is that his strikeout count is just not high enough, so he has less wiggle room. I'm not saying he's a bad pitcher. I think he's a very good pitcher. But when you're thinking about busts, I mean, look, there's other kinds of busts. Like for me, Jose Berrios was so bad last year.
How bad was he?
He was so bad. I mean, Jose Berrios was so bad last year that even though now I can get him at a tremendous value, I won't have him on my team. But I got burned by him personally. We all know what that's like. You're not going back.
I'll get that guy. Don't worry, Dan.
It'll be at least 3 seasons before I go back to him at all. But he's a different kind of bust than Logan Webb. I expect Logan Webb to be a very good pitcher. I just don't like his value. Zach Wheeler is another good example. His ADP is just too high for me because I can't distinguish him from so many other people that I can get a little bit later. So I have him like a little
average draft position, just so everybody knows.
What's that?
ADP that you mentioned is average draft
position. Yeah, and it's important when you're drafting to look at what their ranks are. Like let's say you're doing a Yahoo draft, look at where they're ranked and see where you're picking. A lot of people are going to look at those ranks and draft based on that, and that's going to determine if you get good value or not. So you don't have to talk about busts. You can talk about sleepers, value picks. Case, who's a pitcher of interest to you in one direction or another?
We mentioned Chris Sale earlier. Like he's somebody who I'm going to, if he's available in the middle to later rounds of the draft, I'm probably going to take a flyer on just to get value. Like the ceiling on him is so high. So that's one. But also, I'm going to name a Yankee. Go figure. I never name
Yes.
Yankees in a good way. And that's Nestor Cortez. You know, the guy looks like Luigi from Super Mario Brothers. And, you know, he looks like he's from the original video game, body style and all. And he throws from weird arm angles. And he, you know, like he looks like he should be delivering your pizza. But he just gets numbers. He gets wins. He keeps runs off the board. His ERA is whip. He even is decent in strikeouts. He's not going to win anything, but nobody believes it was real. You know, even though it's been a 1.5 full seasons of him pitching really, really well. And so you're going to be able to get him probably later than you would think. And he's going to get 4 of the 5 categories for you.
Ross.
So here are the guys that I love that you can get late that are not getting any press. We haven't talked about them at all. And these guys are guys that I have on my list to pick up late in our middle to late in our draft on Thursday. The first one is Chris Babbitt of the Toronto Blue Jays. I feel he's
Chris Bassett.
Bassett.
Don't take Chris Babbitt. I don't even know.
I don't know why I said Babbitt. Maybe who knows?
But
Bassett.
Not Lorena Bobbitt.
There you go. Bassett, I think, has got a big year. I like this kid a lot. Another kid that actually was in our network and we interviewed a couple years ago was Lucas Giolotto. Lucas lost 30 pounds during the offseason. He has a couple new pitches that's been working great in spring training. And his problem last year was the ball was just getting too high and they were hitting home runs against him. I think he took care of that problem. I think Lucas will have a big year. Well, he's been throwing pitches like right down the middle, and they were just killing him. But
I mean, and we've seen Lucas Giolito, by the way. We've seen him do that before. He is the kind of pitcher that I could expect more of a bounce back than, let's say, Jose Barrios. I've only seen him have one bad season. And when we've seen him have a big season, it's been better than what Barrios did. You know,
and something else is not. I don't know why people are not taking this guy at least in the top 20, but he's not making anybody. He's not getting any traction. It's Tony Gonsolin of the Dodgers. I mean, this guy was an all-star last year. I think he was opening. I think he was the all-star starter. I want to say he was like, was he 11-1 Casey when he all-star break? It was
it's true, but I mean wins. I think I think
he had 11 wins at the all-star break.
No, I know that. That's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that, savvy fantasy players look at that win total and they know that it's pushing their value up too much. I have him as a value pick, same as you. I think
he's on nobody's charts. That's all.
No, I agree. He truly is on nobody's charts. And in fact, I'm looking at where he's even ranked. I'm trying to find him in the Yahoo rankings. He's so buried in that.
One of the strategies that Daniel has taught me over the years when it comes to drafting pitchers is take the good pitcher who's injured in the beginning of the season, because you can use him you can stash him on the IL. And then when he comes back, it's like you're getting a trade, you're winning a trade mid-season because you've already built your team without him. And the guy I'm looking at right now, who I think is crazy value because I don't think the injury hurts his value, is Tyler Glasnow. Yeah. The reason I don't think it hurts his value, he has the strained oblique. They're saying he's going to miss 8 to 10 weeks, which puts him maybe to start sometime middle of May, end of May. He's coming off of Tommy John surgery. They weren't going to give him more than 130 innings anyway. So if you were planning on drafting him healthy, you were planning on having him for 130 innings. Missing 8 to 10 weeks at the beginning of the season might actually help him last longer into the season and provide you better value when you need it in the stretch run. This is a guy who has elite stuff. And even when he came back in his little cup of coffee after the injury last year, was pretty dominant in the 2 or 3 starts he had. This guy is somebody who you can draft probably late because all the helium's out of him because of the injury. Throw him in your IL spot, pick up one of the guys who don't get drafted, which there's going to be a few who are really good. And then when Glasnow comes back, you have an added bonus. I just think he's a hard guy not to draft, if you can get him in the 8th to 10th round.
Well, and here's another one of those guys with that question, where are the bargains in strikeouts and AL pitching? Tyler Glasnow doesn't get better than that. Meanwhile, I agree with you, Casey, on a number of respects, but one of them is he's coming back from an oblique injury. That's much better than what Carlos Rodon has going on.
Right.
When I hear about a forearm stuff, suddenly they end up with surgery. I'm not saying that's going to happen, and I certainly hope it's not going to happen. But with an oblique, it lasts as long as it lasts, and they come back fine. It happens all the time. So I like him as I have Glass now as a value pick also. Another guy that I have similar value, but he's not injured, is Blake Snell.
Yep.
Nobody's talking about Blake Snell, but he puts up great numbers. He's pitching in a great park. He's got tremendous hitters behind him, so he's likely to get a lot of wins. He looked good last year. Ross, what do you think about Blake Snell?
I love Blake Snell. I loved him when he played for Tampa Bay in the World Series. I watched him pitch against the Dodgers.
I can't believe they took him out.
And they took him out. Overplayed. But Blake Snell is somebody that, that starting staff for the Padres with Musgrove is hurt. He'll be back hopefully middle of April. But, their starting staff is strong. They have a really good team there. And they also have the who's that guy's the rookie last year that we all liked that did nothing last year, but supposedly he looks good too during spring training.
For rookie starter?
Remember he was like a rookie last year and we all were high on him, and Kasey I think drafted
for San Diego.
You're talking about Mackenzie Gore?
Mackenzie Gore.
Oh, he's
now in Washington.
Oh, they traded
and
him.
He put up some bad numbers, but I have him as a sleeper.
I agree with you. He's pitching. I guess he pitches for the Nationals now, but he looks good during spring training. I read about it.
To me, he's the kind of guy that you wanna take a flyer on at the end. He's a perfect sleeper pick because he's got that pedigree that he's the same guy he was. Can he put it all together? If he does, he's going to be a monster.
Okay, before I know we need to wrap up here soon. I would be remiss if anybody knows me or has watched any of our baseball talk. I am a very big fan of prospects and a very big fan of rookies. I'm the anti-Ross when it comes to that stuff. I get
just in hitters, not in pitchers. But I
get way too excited. So I'm going to name 3 dynasty stashes if you're looking at it from a dynasty or keeper league, and 3 guys who could make a big difference when they get called up at some point this season. Obviously, one name everybody's aware of if you've been following the spring at all is Andrew Painter. He's now injured, though, so you don't have to overpay for him. He was somebody you were going to have to overpay for. He's got something that they're saying won't require surgery, will just require rest in his arm. It's something above I don't understand the medical part of it.
Oh, you only went to
Dan's the medical guy. But last year in 103 innings he made it all the way up through AA, 1.56 ERA, 155 strikeouts in 103 innings with a 181 batting average against.
Wow.
The guy is legit, and he's only 19, and he's got pinpoint control, they're saying already, which is amazing for the guy. 2 others who you might not have heard of, and I went one West Coast for Ross, although I couldn't figure out a Dodger I wanted to use, and I went with one Cleveland for Dan. The Cleveland guy is Gavin Williams. Gavin Williams is he's probably a midseason hopeful, but 115 innings, 150 K, 150 strikeouts, throws 100 miles an hour with a wipeout off-speed pitch, 1.96 ERA, and a 173 average against. Awesome. San Francisco Giants have this kid, Kyle Harrison. He might have even gotten a cup of coffee at the end of the season. I'd have to double check. But in 113 innings in the minors last year, 186 strikeouts with a 2.7 ERA and a 196 average against. He's a big, strong lefty who throws hard and has a bunch of pitches. Those are all 3 who are going to be up at some point this season. Have them in your watch list. And if you see them getting some good numbers in the minors, snatch them up, set them at the end of your bench.
Try to stay 2 weeks ahead because they'll get snatched up.
Put them at the end of your bench, and you might just hit a lottery ticket that can help you win.
I mean, everybody's talking about Grayson Rodriguez as another guy like that.
Yep, I have him as a sleeper.
Grayson, I mentioned before, he's my rookie of the year this year. He's the real deal. If you can draft him in the 5th or 6th round, I think that's where he's going to go. Throws 100, 6'6", I think. He's a huge kid.
Yeah.
This guy's the real deal. No surprises here with Grayson Rodriguez.
One other young guy to mention is Ricky Tiedemann of the Blue Jays. He's a lefty, throws really hard, and I think he's got a very bright future. So there's no shortage of these kind of guys, but I do recommend you pick up at least one of them, have them, and if you can get a guy like Andrew Painter and put him in the IR and get 2 of these guys, it can make a big difference. But there are some guys that I think are kind of going in the mid rounds who are just, I think, undervalued and sleeper picks. Brady Singer is one of those guys. I think he's going to have a very good year. He's looked really good. And if you look at their second half numbers, Brady Singer looked great. Here's another guy, Dustin May, Dodgers pitcher, coming back from, I think it was Tommy John. And he's always been the real deal. I think he's going to deliver this year. Ross, I know you love Luis Garcia. I think he's the most undervalued of the Astros pitchers. And he's really looking
I'm
good.
just worried about he takes a lot of time on the mound. I think the pitch clock's going to affect him a lot.
That's an interesting thing to factor in.
I'm curious to see what happens with the pitch count with him because
I think he's going to be okay. But
how he pitches, it's very odd. His whole style is weird, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen.
I get it. One more to mention. This is one of Kasey's favorites, Jesus Luzardo.
I do. I'm a big fan.
He's a big sleeper of mine. Ross, anybody we missed?
I mean, we can go on forever. I mean,
that just speaks to the depth of starting pitching, which is why you don't have to reach for a starting pitcher at any point in the draft.
Not only that, but we know it's going to happen. There's going to be guys that are going to come out of the woodwork that you just didn't see coming. If you get one or two of those guys, if anybody remembers Carlos Rodon from his days with the White Sox, where he had like a 1.7 whip and a 4.4 ERA, you would not have predicted what he became. It didn't look like he was going to put it together. But when a good pitching coach harnesses, these guys have so much talent. If a pitching coach harnesses these guys, those are the ones that are going to emerge. So you just have to look and take it seriously if they start to emerge. Anybody else to mention, guys, that sleepers, busts, value picks? I think we should mention Freddie Peralta as a value pick. This guy is a frontline starter that you can get late. Fastball Freddie.
I also like Springs of Tampa Bay. I think he's going to have a pretty good year in Tampa.
That's interesting because when Kasey mentioned him, you were like, I don't know about Tampa Bay, but his numbers.
I like him. He's been throwing a lot of promise. Like Kasey said, if he gets 5 or 6 innings in a game, that's fine.
I agree.
I mean, I mentioned Tristan McKenzie. I mean, we could go on and on. Luis Severino, we haven't talked about. That guy is coming back and pitched. He threw 100 innings last year and had a 1 whip and over a strikeout an inning, and he's coming back to the Yankees. So there's a lot of just really.
I mean,
the
deepest position by far in fantasy baseball is starting pitcher. There's just tons of value to be had. I think you do wait on it generally, but be smart. Don't wait too long and try to get too cute with it. But I think you can get a lot of value here. Guys, it's been great being here with you. Fun to get to do a Tuesday show. I understand usually you guys get together and make fun of me, which I can't. I need to start watching the show, but usually I'm playing basketball when it's happening. So I got to squeeze this one in. I'm looking forward to our draft too, guys. So that's coming up Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. You'll get to hear our chatter as we talk. And, we tend to be an open book. I know some people, even in the fantasy world, are like, I don't want to reveal what I'm going to do. But we're just all about revealing it because we want it for you guys to see the value. And that's the fun of it, is just talking about the value. I don't necessarily care if I'm going to win. I mean, I care, but I mostly want to talk about these things because it's fun to debate the relative value. So Kasey, Ross, it's been fun being here with you.
Before we go, I just want to get your picks in NCAA starts on Thursday. I know we're not talking basketball right now, but I want to. We are in some pools. I want to hear who you guys are taking to win it all.
All right. Well, we'll close it out with this. I mean, one caveat, Ross. I have not watched a lot of college basketball, and I pick based on certain strategies, and I get terrible results. But if you want to listen to what I have to say, that's fine.
Of course.
I filled out 2 brackets.
I know you did.
My champions you're gonna hate this as an ASU guy, but I picked Arizona to win and won.
That's a good one. I like Arizona also, but keep going.
I like their coach, and I think they've caught fire. It's a 2 seed, so it could easily sneak by where not that many people pick it.
Okay, who's your other pick?
I constantly pick Kelvin Sampson to win the championship, so I'm picking Houston in another. I'm sure it won't happen, but that's who I went with, and I have an underdog going against them. An underdog being Baylor, the 3 seed.
Jason and I took Baylor a few years ago, and won us the pool.
If you're going to take a 1 seed, I think you got to take an underdog on the other side.
I agree. If you want to win the pool, Kasey, who do you have?
I went with upsets, and I have upset is a 3 seed also. I have Xavier beating Virginia in the finals.
Love it.
Ooh.
So good.
Love it.
So if it hits,
if that hits, you win by
bonus. But if it doesn't, then I'm right
No,
where I usually am.
I mean, it's March Madness, guys. Anything can happen. I like Alabama. I
Thursday,
think they're the best
12:15,
team.
Maryland tips off against West Virginia in the first game. Fear the turtle.
I took Maryland for you, Casey. Don't worry. I like Alabama and I like UCLA, even though I'm not a fan of UCLA. I think they have the best team. But it should be fun to watch. I'm excited.
Awesome, guys. Well, looking forward to talking draft with you on Thursday. We'll then be back for a Thursday show, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Pacific, to talk about relief pitchers. It's in some ways very deep, but in some ways very shallow.
It's
tough.
deep only because you're not sure who to rank
It's
because
deep
there's so uncertainty.
Exactly.
So much uncertainty.
I mean, when I ranked the top 10, it was like, these are the top 10 pitchers who are likely to be closers. Like beyond that, it got pretty dicey. Yep. So looking forward to talking that relief pitchers with you guys. And it was great talking starting pitching with you guys. Good luck at the draft. Looking forward to seeing you guys. Thanks so much.